this dude's saying we should be nice to people. That's not what's happening. What's happening is Jesus is proclaiming, it's Muhammad. You all seen the movie Ali, you know? The champ is here. The champ is here. What Jesus is saying is the king is here. The king is here, and his actions are proving that he is in fact that dude. And so everybody around there, he's going to their synagogues, town to town. Every one of them had a synagogue. He's going in. He's teaching. He's displaying his authority by what he's doing. And it's so evident that when he goes up to two crews of brothers out there doing the family business, he goes, and they leave. They drop what they're doing, and they follow him. Further, think about this. Why was Jesus executed? Nobody gets executed for platitude, moral teachings. That's not threatening to anybody. Nobody gets executed for saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. Nobody gets executed for, don't even be angry with your brother. Nobody gets executed for, you know what, be a person of integrity and let your yes be yes and your no be no. Nobody gets executed for that. People get executed by governments because they're saying, no, I am the rightful ruler. These dudes are illegitimate. That's why Jesus was executed, because he's saying, I'm the king that was foretold. That message is sitting there, and there's nothing that they can do to undermine it, because what he's doing is proving he is who he said he is. And that was threatening. So here's what I want to do today. And let me just say this. That message of I'm the king, the kingdom has come near, that is not a message of Jesus. That is the message of Jesus. That's what he was going around teaching, and that's why he was so threatening. You look at the book of Matthew, king or kingdom was, I think it's mentioned, there's 28 chapters, it's mentioned, I believe, 50 times in the book of Matthew. Everything he taught was either about that or flowed from that. And what I mean by everything he taught, what I mean by that is he's either saying the kingdom's here and I'm the dude, or he's saying he's doing things that prove that he is king, or he is saying things to say this is how life in my kingdom is going to be. Okay? So here's what I want to do today. What I think this is so missed, because the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven, same thing, is not. It is the central theme of the Bible, and I think we missed it. I say we, I mean like us. I would. It's overlooked. But I want to give us today a paradigm of just to kind of prove that this is the central theme of the Bible. This is the central theme of the redemption of mankind. And then I want to, once I do that, maybe we'll have time, I want to show you what the Jewish expectations were of the king that was to arrive, and how Jesus upended that. It was unexpected, it was upside down, and because of that, I don't know that I would say they missed it, they rejected it. And so I want to lay all that out today, and I hope we can get through that. So we're going to do a little timeline. With that, when was the first... Well, let me ask this. All right. Y'all finish my sentence. Hater's gonna, runner's gonna run. I won't say I don't even want, you know what I'm thinking. Chappelle show. It's a little different. Runners run, haters hate. Kings rule or reign, but either one. When was the first time that kind of language was used in the Bible. Kingship, reigning, ruling. Think early. Like what page in the Bible? 1. So go back, Genesis 1. So in Genesis 1, we've got God as author, as creative artist. Boom, making everything. He makes the world, and he makes life. And then the last thing he makes is this man, this mankind. So verse 26, I'll just read through it. Verse 26, then God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Does anybody have, this is the old NIV, NIV 84. Does anybody have any different, ESV or current NIV? Read 126 for us. What about, does anybody reading the ESV? Does anyone, that was ESV. Does anyone have, let us make man in our image and our likeness so that they will rule? Yeah. Which version are you in? It doesn't matter. Read it for us, Colin. I'm not concerned about it. This is a different interpretation. This is kind of what I'm trying to link up. There. That's good. So this is the point I'm trying to make. Man, all of creation was made. Life was made. Man was set apart as different. So you think, and I talked about this with Dutch this morning on the way here. Picture a pristine jungle, okay? You've got animals in it. Let's say, it's full of animals, right? You got monkeys and you've got bugs and snakes and all kinds of stuff. What do they do in that jungle? Survive. That's about it. They eat and they sleep and they breed to make new things that eat and sleep and breed, and the jungle goes on. Okay? Take that same jungle, you put 100 people in it. What's going to happen to that jungle? Animal count's going down. That's one. They're going to build. And it's not just that they're going to build stuff that helps them eat and sleep and breed. You take those 100 people in that jungle and you fast forward about 1,000 years, and all of a sudden you're going to see things like hospitals and opera houses and art installations like the downtown crawl or whatever. What I'm trying to expose is that man was put here to image God or represent God. And what that meant, imaging God or representing God, part and parcel of that is ruling and reigning and taking on His likeness. And the other part that I'm trying to expose a little bit is that proper imaging of God, image bearing of God, is a submissive posture. to image him, we have to be like him, right? And what he does is look at the first part of Genesis 1. He creates stuff, so we create stuff. But it's inherently we have authority, but it's authority to rule and reign on behalf of someone else. Okay, and a cool thing is, what is it? I think it's Psalm 8 is a psalm that kind of reflects on exactly this. You can look that later. I don't have time to go through it, but Psalm 8 is a cool one that talks about man's relationship, what God put him on earth to do. So that's the state of things. God creates man, and that's man's role. And then what does man do? Mess it up. Okay, but specifically, what does man do that's counter to what God would have him do? He eats. Yeah, he sins by eating. Eating what? Mm-hmm. So he ate the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Here's how I want you to think about that. I want you to think of it as a hostile takeover. So, as image bearers of God, beings whose purpose was to represent God, to mirror him or image him on planet Earth, that required a submissive posture or a reliance upon God. Specifically, God's definition of what constitutes good and evil. And what we did, our forebears did, was it was a hostile takeover. No, you've put us here, and this is Psalm 8, you put us here to rule in your stead on your behalf as vassal kings or little governors under the big king, this whole of creation. And mankind said, you know what? I'm not cool with that. I'm not cool with you defining good and evil in my submissive posture to you. Instead, I want to seize independence or sovereignty to define those terms or that way of life myself. And so it was mankind's rebellion was a rebellion of God as king and we as ambassadors or vassal kings over earth. So that happens. And then from that point, golly, I'm already way behind. From that point, God institutes a plan. The plan is, I'm going to take it back. And so throughout the Old Testament, I'll hit just a few, and I probably won't even go into the verses because of this. He starts telling of a way that I'm going to take it back. So I've hit a few. That's creation fall. Abraham, he says, look, you nobody. I'm fixing to make you into essentially a nation. He doesn't use those terms, but he says, through you, three things are going to happen. I'm going to make you numerous. I'm going to make you a people. I'm going to give you land. And then, oh yeah, by the way, through you, all people will be blessed. So in Abraham, we have this hint of, I'm fixing to make you into a nation. Exodus, fast forward, he doesn't do all that immediately. He takes a roundabout route through Exodus. In Exodus, the first component of that numerous descendants starts happening. And then God says, all right, I'm gonna give you the other two now, so it's time to bust you out. And in that, right after God busts them out, a curious thing happens, and we will turn there. Exodus chapter, I think it's 12. I think it's Exodus 12. The song of the sea, isn't it? No, it's not 12. It's 15. In 15, God, well, I won't read the whole thing, but turn the end. Verse 17, I'll start there. They're praising God for what he's done and busting them out of Exodus. Verse 17, you'll bring them and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place, O Lord, you made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, your hands established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. In other versions, some of the older ones, it said, like Darby is one of them, but it says, Jehovah will reign as king forever and ever. This is the first time in the Bible where it is explicitly said, I, God, am going to be your king, and all of you are going to go under. All of you will rule underneath me. And so from there, I'm fast forwarding. God's mentioned directly as king. He gets them out. He makes them into a nation as no king, has no king. They're acknowledging God is our king. That doesn't last too long in the area of Judges. And then in 1 Samuel 8:7, the people say, hey, you know what? We want to be like the rest of them. We reject God as king and give us a king. And it's explicitly stated in 1 Samuel 8:7, like Samuel's hacked, like he's ticked at his people. And the reason why he's ticked is because he acknowledges what's going on, and what's going on is they're rejecting God as king. We want a substitute king. It's the same thing that happened in Genesis 1, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so Saul's installed. Saul's a bad king. David comes. He reigns. Solomon comes. And then the kingdom is split up too, north and south. It's busted up, and I'm just fast forwarding really fast, but the northern kingdom is wicked and rebels against God. He wipes them out. So all that's left of Israel and their hope of restoration is this southern kingdom. And then that hope is like shattered. Why? Because they're wicked, and Babylon comes in and wipes them out. Or I say wipes them out. Comes in and takes them into exile. Before that happens, Isaiah is a prophet before that happens, and he says, look, this is fitting to happen. Y'all been wicked, and he's going to take you into exile. He's going to send a kingdom to conquer you, pull you off. But I want you to know that's going to happen, and he's not going to wipe you out, and he's going to restore a king, his kingdom back. That's Isaiah 9, Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11, I'll just summarize verse 10. Isaiah says, God's saying, I'm going to bring in a new king to gather and rule all the peoples. And then Isaiah 60, another one, he gives this idea of a conquering kingdom that's going to come. 61, it's going to integrate all peoples. And they thought that integration, that's Isaiah 61 verse 5, they thought that integration of all people was going to be Jewish dominance, bringing in all peoples as serfs or servants of their slaves type. So that happens. Babylon comes, takes them off. Some stuff happens, but then we get to Daniel. Daniel's serving under a king. And Jared, you talked about this one. Let's turn to Daniel chapter 2 there. I'll hit on that a little bit. All right, so Nebuchadnezzar is given a dream, and it's a weird dream. And then Nebuchadnezzar pulls something weird. He's like, hey, wise men, my sorcerers and types, I want you to interpret my dream. They say, awesome. What was your dream? He's like, heck no, I'm not telling you my dream. You got to interpret it not knowing it. Then I know you really have this power. So none of them can do it. He punishes them. And he's like, is there anybody anywhere that can interpret my dream? So he brings in Daniel. Daniel says, all right, I'll do it for you. So The dream. Jared, you want to summarize the dream? Just the dream, not the interpretation.
Basically, there was a statue made of 5 or 6 materials: gold, silver, bronze, clay, iron, and then someone carved a rock out of the mountain. Rock comes in, crushes the statue, busts it up into a bunch of pieces, and it's obliterated.
Yep.
The king wakes up this way.
So Daniel's interpretation of that is he tells him, look, here's what it is. You're this king, but after you, there's going to be 3 kingdoms. 1, 2, 3. And in that third kingdom, out of that is going to arise another kingdom that's going to decimate all the other ones. I say all that to say, so God at this point has kind of elucidated, not only am I bringing a king, but I'm telling you when it's going to happen. So kingdom and when. The way that I'm going to reconcile all the way back from here, all these people, and restore my reign and my rule over all of creation is through this kingdom that I'm going to bring, of which there will be no more rejection of me. This kingdom will not be overthrown. There will not be any hostile takeovers. There will not be any rejections of me as king. The kingdom that I'm going to establish is going to happen in this third kingdom after you, and it will be permanent forever and ever. That's the way I'm going to redeem you, O Israel. All right. All right. So how am I going to bring some of this home? Let's turn to Matthew again. So how did Matthew start off? Bloodline of a king. Matthew, let's see how Matthew ends. 28. Did I hit this already? I may be repeating myself. I did. So it starts off with bloodline of a king. It ends with, I've been coronated as king. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. I've been coronated as king. Now let's go ahead and conquer everything. And so let me read the Great Commission. I'm going to read it, then I'm going to kind of restate it in terms like this. Great Commission. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and surely I'll be with you always to the very end of the age. Now then, let me reread that, kind of reinterpret that for you. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. What I wanted for my creation was frustrated because of mankind's rebellion. I was not going to allow that to sit. So now I'm taking it all back. All of it's mine. Here's the way we're going to go about doing that. This is the way we're going to restore my reign over all of creation. What you're going to do is you're going to go everywhere. You're going to go into all the nations. And you're going to teach individuals that I am king. And what it's going to do is it's going to establish my superiority over all the nations. Why? Because I can even take their citizens, their subjects for myself. This is how we're going to conquer the kingdoms. And what we're going to do there, you're going to baptize them in my name, or meaning under my banner, for my cause. They're going to become mine, even though they may be part of the United States or France or Iraq or whatever. In reality, they're operating under the flag of Jesus Christ. They're mine. Then you're going to teach them to obey everything that I've taught you. So what he's saying there is, I'm going to restore unto humanity my definition of good and evil that was taken or rejected at the fall. Teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, my way reigns superior in them. And then I'm going to be with you all the way till the end of the age. I will be Emmanuel, God with you, King over this procession, over this conquering acquisition of everything. All right. Is there anything else I want to do? So let me hit a couple things. Ways that this kingdom, I've got 5 minutes. Ways that this kingdom was misapprehended and why. So, the Jews, let me give you a couple. Let's go Psalm 2. Let's read that real fast. Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed one. Let us break their chains, they say, and throw off their fetters. The one enthroned in heaven laughs, and the Lord scoffs at them. Then he rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will proclaim the decree of the Lord. He said to me, You are my son, today I have become your father. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will rule them with an iron scepter. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you be destroyed in your way. For his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. So, and I could give you a couple more, but this is kind of the idea of, this was kind of the paradigm that the Jews were thinking. They were expecting a conquering king that came in and did what traditional kingdoms of the earth did, which was, I go through, I wipe people out, and I subjugate them to me. I conquer the way kings traditionally conquer, and I subjugate the way kings traditionally subjugate. So within that, you've got some expectations. Expectations of a conquering king who acquires power by virtue of an army, who dominates and possibly destroys other kingdoms, who's coronated in a traditional way or elevated to king in a traditional way, whose citizens are made the same way. You got citizens and you got serfs, and that's just how it is. Now, let me give you, I guess we'll go, what time do y'all want to get out? 9:45 or 9:50? It's 9:43 right now. 50, all right. I'll just give you these 5 or 6 ways that it was unexpected. They expected the conquering king. Instead, they got the suffering servant. So, Matthew 16, I'll go there real fast, 21 through 25. All right, so in this, right above it, verse 13, Peter correctly determines Jesus is the king, the Messiah that was foretold. But Peter's assumption even is that Jesus is, he's going to be the king that he thought of, the conquering king. So Jesus starts correcting that. Verse 21, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, teachers of the law. That he must be killed and on that third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside to rebuke him. Never, Lord, this shall never happen to you. Peter's assumption is, no, you're the king. I know you're the king. I just confessed you're the king. That's not what happens to a king. So Jesus, from that point on, starts telling them. And part of the misunderstanding was they took Isaiah 53, the prophecy of the suffering servant. They didn't think that was the king that was to come. But anyway, so he tells them, look, I'm going to suffer, and then Matthew 20 does the same thing. I'm going to suffer. Army. Okay. John 6. The army that he uses to rise to power. So y'all know in John 6. Golly. Crowds come to Jesus. John chapter 6. This is when he feeds the 5,000 dudes. So he feeds them. They followed him to this one side of the lake, and he feeds them. They're like, dang it, this is the king that was promised. They all realized that. And so after the people saw, this is verse 14, John chapter 6, after the people saw the miraculous sign that Jesus did, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. Verse 15, Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to the hills by himself. So this is what Jesus does. He feeds them. They recognize him. This is the king. How do kings come to power? They need an army. They fight. We install him. That's what they're planning on doing. Jesus is like, nope, not my plan. He gets out. Crosses the lake, Gennesaret. By walking on it, meets him up. The whole crowd follows him to the other side of the lake. Okay? So they're on one side of the lake. They walk around following there, looking for him. Are these dudes convinced that he's king? Yeah. They're totally convinced. I can't do it justice. Here's what I'm going to say. Jesus runs them off. Okay? And he runs them off through tricky parable that's so confusing that nobody would follow him. Basically says, look, yeah, I'm the king. You're going to have to cannibalize me. You're going to have to rip me up and eat my meat and drink my blood. They're like, dude, I don't understand. Anybody who heard that's thinking, this dude's crazy. He must not be the king. Right? Anybody. They all leave. The only ones left are his apostles, his army. Instead of the 5,000 traditional army, he is left with an army of 12 dudes that are like, he tells them after he kind of clears up he doesn't really clear up the confusion. They're like, he says, are you going to leave too? And they're like, where would we go? You have the words of truth. And that's when he says this line a couple of times. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me I will never drive away. I shall lose none of all that the Father has given me, but I'll raise them up at the last day. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent them draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled them. What he's saying is, like, traditionally the way the kings roused the army was they were so inspirational, such great leaders that the army came around him persuaded by who he was, and he rallied the troops himself, and they went and conquered. What Jesus is saying is, no, the army that I'm going to raise is going to be lunatics. They would, if it was just by my persuasiveness, they would be lunatics. No one can be in my army unless God has specially enabled them to come to me and serve. And the army that I have, I'll lose none. What he's saying is, traditionally in battles, when people fight with swords and guns and stuff, people die. My army, there will be no bloodshed. Not a single dude will die in my acquisition of power. You know how I know that's the proper meaning of that? Flip it over, and this, I guess, will be the last thing. Yeah, this will be the last. John 18, and you can do it in 17 too. This is in Gethsemane. Peter chops off the ear. They're like, who's Jesus? Who's Jesus? He's like, hey, it's me. Hey, it's me. And he's doing it. Peter chops off the ear. Jesus is trying to calm down the soldiers so that there's no bloodshed. And then he says this. And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus says, verse 8, I told you that I am he. Jesus answered, if you are looking for me, then let these men go. Because he knew after Peter chopped off the ear, there's fixing to be some bloodshed, right? Verse 9, this happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those that you gave me. Summarize. This is how all the elements of the kingdom that were unexpected in Jesus, maybe not all of them. They expected a conquering king. They got a suffering servant. They expected an army that would be how he would acquire power. Instead, they got 12 dudes that it made no sense except that God called him to be his army. They expected dominance, destruction of competing kingdoms. Instead, they got, my kingdom is not of this world, and at the end, all the kingdoms of earth will submit their power to me. They expected a coronation with crowns and opulence. They got a crown of thorns and a robe from another dude. They expected conquering. They got integration. They expected an elevation of Jewish citizenship. What they got, Romans chapter 9, was that most of the Jews rejected him and most of the citizens were Gentiles. All right, 9:51. I'm sorry I didn't do it justice, but we'll reconvene and go back. Sorry.